Father wants tradition, a son wants compassion, and one woman holds the power to change everything. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you like the story and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The Dakota Territory, 1876. A harsh winter wind swept across the plains, rattling the wooden structures of the small settlement that sat on the edge of Lakota Territory. Chief Running Elk stood at the threshold of his lodge, his weathered face contemplating the horizon where the sun was beginning to set. 5 moons had passed since his beloved wife, Mourning Dove, had succumbed to the fever that had ravaged their tribe. The grief still clung to him like a shadow. "Father," called a young voice from inside the lodge, "the fire needs more wood." Running Elk turned to see his son, young Hawk, now 12 winters old, attempting to tend the dying flames. The boy had grown quieter since his mother's passing, taking on responsibilities beyond his years. Running Elk nodded and moved back inside, adding dried branches to the fire. "The council meeting is tonight," Running Elk said, watching as the flames grew stronger. "Elder White Bear believes it is time I took another wife." Young Hawk's hands stilled. "I don't want another mother." Running Elk sighed, settling beside his son. "I understand your heart is still wounded. Mine is too. But our lodge needs a woman's touch. The winter will be long. Then I will work harder," young Hawk insisted, his dark eyes reflecting the firelight. "I can cook and tend the lodge like Mother taught me." Running Elk placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "You are becoming a strong Lakota, but you should be learning to hunt and ride, not spending your days doing women's work. Our people have traditions for a reason." Young Hawk fell silent, his gaze fixed on the dancing flames. Running Elk knew his son's stubbornness came from a place of loyalty to his mother's memory. But life among the Lakota was hard, and a lodge without a woman was like a body without a heart. It could function, but not truly live. "There will be visitors arriving tomorrow," Running Elk continued. "Warriors from the Cheyenne and their families. Among them will be several unmarried women of good standing." Young Hawk's head snapped up. "You want me to choose your wife?" Running Elk nodded solemnly. "You will live with her too. Her hands will prepare your food. Her voice will fill our lodge. It is right that you have a say in this matter." "And if I choose no one?" "Then the choice will fall to me," Running Elk replied firmly. "But I give you this chance because I honor your feelings, my son." Later that evening, as Running Elk sat among the tribal council, Elder White Bear spoke of the coming Cheyenne delegation. "They bring 3 women of marriageable age," he explained. "Strong women who have proven their worth. One is the daughter of Chief Gray Wolf himself." Running Elk nodded, though his heart felt little enthusiasm. "My son will observe them and make his judgment." Several eyebrows raised at this statement. "The boy chooses your wife?" asked Black Knife, a younger warrior whose opinion Running Elk rarely valued. "He chooses a mother," Running Elk corrected. "I choose a wife." The next morning, the Cheyenne delegation arrived with much ceremony. Young Hawk watched from a distance as the visitors dismounted from their ponies. His eyes scanned the women, noting the 3 who were clearly being presented as potential brides. They stood tall and proud, adorned in finely decorated deerskin dresses with intricate beadwork. "The one with the red beads is Strong Water, daughter of Chief Gray Wolf," whispered Running Elk's sister Willow, who had come to stand beside young Hawk. "The others are Swift Deer and Night Song. All are known for their skills." Young Hawk observed them silently, his young face betraying nothing of his thoughts. The feast to welcome the Cheyenne lasted well into the evening. Young Hawk watched as the 3 women moved through the gathering. Strong Water carried herself with the confidence of a chief's daughter, her movements precise and purposeful. Swift Deer was more animated, laughing easily and speaking with many. Night Song was quieter, but displayed impressive skill when she joined the women in a traditional dance. As the celebration continued, a commotion erupted at the edge of the camp. 2 traders had arrived, leading a small wagon. "They bring goods to trade," explained Willow, "and news from the white settlements." Young Hawk's curiosity drew him closer to the traders. One was a gruff-looking man with a thick beard. The other was younger, with sharp eyes that constantly assessed the value of everything they fell upon. Behind them, sitting in the wagon, was a woman unlike any young Hawk had seen before. Her hair was the color of summer wheat, her skin pale despite being weathered by the sun. She kept her eyes downcast, her hands folded in her lap. "Who is she?" Young Hawk asked a passing warrior. "A slave they purchased from another trader," came the reply. "They say her family was killed by raiders. They offer her in trade for furs and horses." Young Hawk felt a strange tightness in his chest as he observed the woman. She seemed utterly alone, surrounded by a world entirely foreign to her. In that moment, something in her reminded him of himself, a person severed from all they had known and loved. As the night deepened, young Hawk returned to his father's lodge, his mind filled with the faces he had seen that day. Running Elk joined him later, settling down with a weary sigh. "Have you formed any thoughts about the women?" he asked. Young Hawk stared into the fire. "They are all worthy," he said carefully. "Strong Water has hands that look capable of much work. Swift Deer has a laugh that would bring warmth to our lodge. Night Song moves with grace and patience." Running Elk nodded, pleased with his son's observations. "Tomorrow they will each bring food they have prepared. You will see more of their qualities then." Young Hawk hesitated, then asked, "What about the white woman with the traders?" Running Elk's expression darkened. "She is not for us. The ways of the white people are different. She would not understand our life. But she has no people now," Young Hawk persisted. "Like Mother, she has been taken by fate." "It is not the same," Running Elk said firmly. "Rest now. Tomorrow will bring its own decisions." Dawn broke over the encampment with streaks of crimson and gold painting the sky. Young Hawk had slept fitfully, his dreams filled with his mother's face and, strangely, the sad eyes of the white captive. He rose early and left the lodge before his father awakened, drawn to the trader's wagon. The camp was still quiet, with only a few early risers tending to morning tasks. Young Hawk approached cautiously, noticing the white woman sitting alone by a small fire. The traders were nowhere to be seen, likely still sleeping off the previous night's festivities. The woman tensed as she noticed his approach, her blue eyes widening with apprehension. Young Hawk raised his empty hands to show he meant no harm. "Hungry?" he asked in the broken English he had learned from traders who occasionally visited their camp. The woman seemed surprised by his words but gave a small nod. Young Hawk reached into the pouch at his waist and produced a piece of dried meat, offering it to her. After a moment's hesitation, she accepted it. "Thank you," she said softly. Her voice was gentle, though strained with exhaustion. Young Hawk pointed to himself. "Young Hawk." Then he gestured toward her questioningly. "Sarah," she replied, touching her chest. "Sarah Mitchell." Young Hawk repeated the name, the foreign syllables feeling strange on his tongue. "Sarah." A ghost of a smile touched her lips, the first he had seen. It transformed her face, and for a moment, young Hawk glimpsed what she might have been like before tragedy had befallen her. "How long with traders?" he asked, struggling to form the question. Sarah's expression clouded. 2 months, she answered. "They bought me from the men who attacked our wagon train." Her voice faltered. "My parents and brother didn't survive." Though young Hawk couldn't understand all her words, he grasped enough to comprehend the depth of her loss. "My mother," he said, touching his chest where his heart beat. "Gone to spirit world." 5 moons passed. Recognition of their shared grief passed between them, a silent understanding that transcended the barriers of language and culture. In that moment, young Hawk made his decision. Later that morning, as promised, the 3 Cheyenne women presented food to Running Elk's lodge. Strong Water arrived first, bringing a stew rich with buffalo meat and prairie turnips. Swift Deer followed with freshly baked corn cakes sweetened with wild berries. Night Song offered a traditional preparation of dried meat pounded with cherries and fat, a sustaining food that would last through winter journeys. Young Hawk accepted each offering with proper respect, but remained distracted, his thoughts repeatedly turning to Sarah. Running Elk noticed his son's inattention and frowned. "You must give each woman fair consideration," he chided after the third had left. "This decision affects our future." Young Hawk met his father's gaze steadily. "I have made my choice." Running Elk's eyebrows raised. "So quickly? Which one speaks to your heart?" "None of them," young Hawk replied, summoning his courage. "I choose the white woman." Running Elk stared at his son in disbelief, then his face darkened with anger. This is foolishness. She knows nothing of our ways. She cannot cook our foods, make our clothes, or speak our language. She can learn, young Hawk insisted, and I can teach her. The tribe would never accept this, Running Elk argued. She is a white captive being sold as a slave. Taking her as my wife would bring dishonor. Not if you free her, young Hawk countered. Not if you make her a person again. Running Elk paced the lodge, his frustration evident in every movement. Why, son? Why do you choose this stranger over women of our own kind, who would bring honor to our lodge? Young Hawk struggled to articulate the feeling that had gripped him since seeing Sarah. She is alone, as we are alone. She has lost everything, as we have lost much. In her eyes I see someone who understands our sorrow. He paused, then added, Mother would not want us to turn away from someone who suffers. The mention of Mourning Dove gave Running Elk pause. His late wife had been known for her compassion, often taking in orphaned children, or caring for elders who had no family. It had been one of the qualities he had most cherished in her. The traders will demand much for her, Running Elk said, his tone softening slightly. I will give them my pony, young Hawk offered, and the silver armbands Mother's brother gave me. Running Elk shook his head. Those are yours. If this truly is your choice and I still think it unwise, then I will handle the trading. That afternoon, Running Elk approached the traders. Young Hawk watched from a distance as his father engaged in lengthy negotiations. At one point, the discussion grew heated, with the bearded trader gesturing animatedly toward Sarah. Finally, after what seemed like hours, an agreement was reached. Running Elk handed over several fine furs and 2 horses. In return, the younger trader roughly pulled Sarah from the wagon and pushed her toward Running Elk. The Lakota chief spoke briefly to Sarah, then led her toward their lodge where young Hawk waited anxiously. As they approached, young Hawk could see the fear and confusion in Sarah's eyes. She is ours now, Running Elk announced, his voice betraying his lingering doubts. But this creates many difficulties. The council will not approve, and the Cheyenne delegation will be insulted. Before young Hawk could respond, Elder White Bear appeared at the entrance to their lodge, his ancient face creased with displeasure. What is this I hear? He demanded. You have rejected the honorable women presented to you in favor of a white captive? Running Elk straightened his shoulders. My son has made this choice. I honor his judgment. This is unprecedented, White Bear said sternly. The council must discuss this matter immediately. The woman will wait outside the council lodge until we have decided her fate. As White Bear departed, Running Elk turned to his son. You see the trouble you have caused? Now our standing in the tribe is threatened. Young Hawk looked at Sarah, who stood trembling despite her efforts to appear brave. He stepped closer to her. No fear, he said in English. I protect. Running Elk watched this interaction with mixed emotions. Then, with a heavy sigh, he said, Come. We must face the council together. The council meeting lasted well into the evening. Young Hawk and Sarah waited outside as the elders deliberated. Occasionally, raised voices could be heard from within the lodge. Sarah sat with her arms wrapped around herself, her wheat-colored hair falling forward to hide her face. Why? She asked softly after a long silence. Why did you choose me? Young Hawk struggled to find the right words in English. You, alone. Me alone. Together. Not alone. Sarah studied his young face, seeming to search for deception. Finding none, she whispered, I don't belong here. Can learn, young Hawk insisted. Can become Lakota. Before Sarah could respond, the council lodge flap opened, and Running Elk emerged. His expression was solemn but composed. The council has spoken, he announced. The white woman may stay, but not as my wife. She will live with my sister Willow and learn our ways. If, after one turning of the seasons, she has proven herself worthy and wishes to remain, the council will reconsider. Young Hawk felt both relief and disappointment. She will not be my mother? Not yet, Running Elk replied. She must earn her place among us, and I must prove to the council that I remain a worthy leader despite this unconventional decision. As Willow came to lead Sarah away to her new temporary home, the white woman glanced back at young Hawk with an expression that mingled gratitude and apprehension. In that moment, young Hawk silently renewed his determination to help her find acceptance among his people. The weeks that followed Sarah's arrival brought significant changes to the Lakota encampment. The Cheyenne delegation had departed, clearly offended by Running Elk's decision. Strong Water, the chief's daughter, had left with particularly harsh words about the weakness of Lakota men, who favored pale-skinned captives over worthy Cheyenne women. Winter tightened its grip on the plains, bringing biting cold and occasional blizzards that forced everyone to remain inside their lodges. Sarah spent her days with Willow, learning the ways of Lakota women, how to prepare hides, cook traditional foods, and craft essential items for daily life. The language barrier remained challenging, but Sarah proved to be a quick learner. She absorbed Lakota words and phrases with remarkable speed, though her pronunciation often caused Willow to laugh. In return, Sarah taught Willow English words, creating a unique blend of communication between them. Young Hawk visited his aunt's lodge whenever possible, eager to see Sarah's progress. On one particularly cold afternoon, he arrived to find Sarah sitting cross-legged before the fire, carefully stringing glass beads onto a leather strip. "Your hands move like a Lakota woman's now," he commented in his people's tongue, pleased when Sarah's face brightened with recognition. "Willow says I still tie knots like a white person," she replied haltingly in Lakota, her accent still strong, but her meaning clear. Young Hawk settled beside her. "You learn faster than anyone expected." Sarah's expression grew serious. "Some still look at me with hatred in their eyes." "Black Knife and his followers," young Hawk acknowledged. "They believe my father was wrong to bring you here." "Perhaps he was," Sarah said softly, her fingers momentarily stilling on the beadwork. "I don't belong anywhere anymore." "That isn't true," young Hawk insisted. "You belong where you choose to belong." Sarah studied him curiously. "You're wise for someone so young." Young Hawk shrugged. "My mother said I was born with an old spirit." At the mention of his mother, a comfortable silence fell between them. Sarah had learned enough about Lakota culture to understand the deep reverence they held for those who had passed into the spirit world. She had also come to recognize the profound loss that young Hawk and his father still carried. "Tell me about her," Sarah requested gently. "About your mother." Young Hawk's eyes grew distant with memory. "She was called Mourning Dove because her voice was as sweet as birdsong at dawn. She could heal sicknesses that others couldn't. Her hands were never still, always weaving, cooking, or tending to someone in need." His voice caught slightly. "She taught me to see beauty in small things, the pattern of frost on a leaf, the way sunlight dances on water." Sarah nodded, understanding. "My mother taught me to read the stars. On clear nights we would sit outside our cabin, and she would tell stories about the constellations." Her blue eyes misted with tears. "I wonder if they can see each other now, in the spirit world." "My people believe all things are connected," young Hawk said. "The stars, the earth, the living and the dead, so perhaps they do." Their conversation was interrupted by the sudden arrival of Running Elk. His face was tense, his breath coming in visible puffs in the cold air. "Young Hawk, come quickly," he commanded. "Scouts have reported a band of Crow warriors approaching from the north. The council meets now." Young Hawk rose immediately. The Crow were traditional enemies of the Lakota, and their appearance in winter was unusual and concerning. "Stay inside," he told Sarah before following his father. At the council lodge, the atmosphere was tense. Elder White Bear sat with a grave expression as Running Elk's lead scout, Swift Arrow, described what he had seen. "A party of 15 warriors moving fast despite the snow. They carry weapons and wear their war paint." Black Knife, who had become increasingly vocal in his opposition to Running Elk's leadership, spoke up sharply. "They come because they've heard our chief grows soft, taking in white women instead of strengthening our alliances." Running Elk's face hardened. "They come because it is the way of the Crow to test our boundaries. This has nothing to do with Sarah." "Everything has changed since she arrived," Black Knife insisted. "Our strongest allies, the Cheyenne, left insulted. Now our enemies approach. The spirits send us warnings you refuse to heed." Before the argument could escalate further, Elder White Bear raised his hand for silence. "What matters now is not why they come, but how we respond. Running Elk, as chief, what do you propose?" All eyes turned to Running Elk. Despite the challenges to his leadership, his strategic mind was still respected. "We will not seek battle in winter," he said firmly, "but neither will we show fear. I will take 10 warriors to meet them before they reach our camp. We will learn their intentions and show our strength." The council murmured their approval, even Black Knife grudgingly nodding his agreement. "I will ride with you," Black Knife declared, a clear challenge. "As will I," Young Hawk announced, standing taller. Running Elk looked at his son with surprise. "You are not yet a warrior." "I am old enough to ride and carry a message," Young Hawk argued. "Let me be your runner if negotiations turn sour." After a moment's consideration, Running Elk nodded. "Very well. Prepare quickly. We ride within the hour." As the council dispersed, Young Hawk hurried to gather his riding gear. His heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. This would be his first encounter with enemy warriors. At the edge of camp, he found Sarah waiting, her face pinched with worry. "Willow told me about the crow," she said. "Is it dangerous?" Young Hawk straightened his shoulders, attempting to appear more confident than he felt. "All meetings between rival tribes carry risk, but my father is wise in such matters." Sarah hesitated, then reached out to touch his arm. "Be careful. Your father needs you. And," she paused, seeming to search for words, "I have lost enough people I care about." The simple statement warmed Young Hawk more than any fire could have. With a solemn nod, he mounted his pony and rode to join the warriors gathering at the camp's edge. The Lakota party rode northwest, following the scouts' directions. The plains stretched before them, blanketed in snow that glittered under the winter sun. Despite the beauty, tension ran high among the warriors. Running Elk led them with the quiet authority that had earned him his position as chief, while Black Knife rode close behind, his posture radiating challenge. They spotted the Crow party after crossing a frozen stream. The enemy warriors had stopped in a small grove of trees, apparently making camp. Running Elk signaled his men to halt within sight of the Crow, but maintaining enough distance for safety. "Young Hawk," Running Elk called softly, "ride to that ridge and watch. If you see them prepare to attack, return to our camp immediately and warn our people." Young Hawk nodded, understanding the trust his father was placing in him. As he guided his pony away from the main group, he heard Black Knife mutter something about sending a boy to do a warrior's job. Ignoring the taunt, Young Hawk took his position on the ridge, watching intently as his father and the others approached the Crow encampment under a flag of truce. The meeting seemed tense but controlled. From his vantage point, Young Hawk could see the leaders of both parties engaging in formal gestures of greeting before sitting to talk. Time passed slowly as the discussions continued. The sun began its descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the snow. Suddenly, Young Hawk noticed movement in the trees behind the Crow camp, more warriors emerging from hiding. This was not a party of 15 as the scout had reported, but closer to 30. It was an ambush. Without hesitation, Young Hawk turned his pony and galloped back toward the Lakota camp. The wind whipped at his face as he pushed his mount to its limits. Behind him, he heard shouts and the distant sounds of conflict erupting. His father and the others were outnumbered, perhaps already fighting for their lives. When he reached the camp, Young Hawk's warning sparked immediate action. Warriors who had remained behind quickly armed themselves, while women gathered children into the safety of the central lodges. Young Hawk found himself surrounded by experienced fighters seeking information. "How many?" demanded Two Bears, an elder warrior who had stayed behind due to an injured leg. 30 or more, Young Hawk replied breathlessly. They hid in the trees until the talk began. Two Bears nodded grimly. "A coward's tactic, but effective. We must move quickly." As the rescue party prepared to depart, Young Hawk felt a hand on his arm. He turned to find Sarah standing beside him, her face resolute. "I know these plains," she said in careful Lakota. "Before the traders, my family's wagon train crossed near here. There is a ravine that runs behind those trees. Your warriors could approach unseen." The Lakota men looked at her with surprise and suspicion. Two Bears frowned. "Why should we trust the word of a white woman?" "Because she has no reason to lie," Young Hawk argued. "And every reason to help us save my father, the man who saved her." After a moment's deliberation, Two Bears nodded. "Show us this ravine on the dirt map." Sarah knelt and quickly sketched the terrain in the dirt, indicating the position of the hidden approach. The warriors studied it, then exchanged looks of approval. "You have the eyes of a scout," Two Bears acknowledged. "We will use this path." As the warriors mounted their ponies, Young Hawk moved to join them. Two Bears shook his head. "You have done your part, boy. Now it is for warriors to finish." "He is my father," Young Hawk protested. "And our chief," Two Bears replied firmly. "Honor him by protecting the camp in our absence." Reluctantly, Young Hawk stayed behind as the war party galloped away. The waiting that followed was agonizing. Sarah remained at his side, occasionally offering words of reassurance that did little to ease his worry. Night had fallen completely when the sounds of returning horses reached the camp. Young Hawk rushed forward, straining to see in the darkness. Relief flooded through him as he recognized his father's tall figure among the returning warriors. Running Elk dismounted slowly, favoring his right side where blood stained his buckskin shirt. "Father!" Young Hawk called, rushing to him. Running Elk clasped his son's shoulder with a weary but proud smile. "Your warning saved many lives today, and the path the white woman showed our warriors turned the tide of battle." His gaze moved to Sarah, who stood a respectful distance away. "You have both proven your worth to our people." Later, as Sarah helped Willow tend to Running Elk's wound, a deep cut that would leave a scar but would heal cleanly, the chief studied her with newfound respect. "You risked much today," he said. "The Crow could have been victorious. If they had taken this camp, your fate as a white woman among them would have been harsh." Sarah's hands remained steady as she applied a poultice to the wound. "This is my home now," she said simply. "These are my people." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Young Hawk, watching from nearby, felt something shift in his father's demeanor. A softening, a recognition. In Sarah's actions and words, Running Elk had glimpsed the same quality of courage and loyalty that he had cherished in Mourning Dove. As Sarah finished bandaging his wound, Running Elk caught her hand. "Thank you," he said, the words carrying more weight than their simplicity suggested. That night, as the camp settled into an uneasy peace, Young Hawk sat beside his father in their lodge. "The council can no longer doubt her place among us," he said. Running Elk nodded slowly. "Black Knife fell in the battle. His voice against her is silenced." He paused, his expression thoughtful. "But more importantly, she has proven herself not just worthy of acceptance, but worthy of respect. Then she will stay, as part of our family." Running Elk gazed into the fire, its light casting shadows across his face. "We shall see what the coming days bring. The path before us is still uncharted." Spring arrived on the plains, bringing with it new life and renewed activity to the Lakota encampment. The snows melted, revealing tender green shoots pushing through the soil. Birds returned from their winter journeys, filling the air with song. It was a time of rebirth and new beginnings, a fitting backdrop for the changes taking place within the tribe. The winter's events had transformed Sarah's position among the Lakota. Her role in the victory against the Crow had earned her the respect of even the most skeptical tribal members. She moved through the camp with growing confidence, her once hesitant Lakota now flowing more naturally. Her pale skin had darkened slightly from exposure to the strengthening sun, and her wheat-colored hair was often braided in the Lakota style, adorned with beads that she had crafted herself. On this particular morning, Sarah worked alongside Willow and the other women, preparing hides for the summer lodges. Her hands had grown calloused over the months, now moving with practiced efficiency as she scraped and stretched the deerskin. "You have become a true Lakota woman," Willow commented with approval. "Your hands remember what they once had to think about." Sarah smiled at the compliment. "I had a good teacher. And yet there is still something of the white world in you," Willow observed, not unkindly. "Sometimes I see you looking at the horizon, as if searching for something beyond our lands." Sarah's hands stilled momentarily. "Not searching," she corrected softly. "Just remembering. The past doesn't disappear simply because we build a new present." Willow nodded with understanding. "This is wisdom. To honor what came before while embracing what is now." She paused, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Speaking of what is now, have you noticed how my brother watches you?" Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. Over the winter months, her relationship with Running Elk had evolved in unexpected ways. What had begun as reluctant tolerance had gradually transformed into mutual respect, and then something deeper and more complex. They often found themselves in conversation long after others had retired for the evening, sharing stories of their respective cultures and discovering surprising commonalities despite their different backgrounds. "He watches me as he watches all members of the tribe," Sarah deflected, focusing intently on her work. Willow laughed. "If you believe that, then perhaps you are not as observant as I thought. He has not looked at anyone that way since Mourning Dove walked among us." Before Sarah could respond, young Hawk approached, his face alight with excitement. At 13, he had grown taller over the winter, his shoulders broadening as childhood gave way to adolescence. "Father has called a council meeting," he announced. "All are to attend, even the women and children." Willow raised her eyebrows in surprise. "This is unusual. What is the purpose?" Young Hawk shrugged, though his eyes betrayed that he knew more than he was saying. "Father says it concerns the future of our people. That's all I know." The women packed away their work and followed young Hawk to the central gathering place. The entire tribe had assembled, creating a large circle around the council fire. Running Elk stood at its center, dressed in his ceremonial attire, his face solemn yet somehow lighter than it had been in months. Sarah took her place at the edge of the circle, still conscious of her unique position within the tribe. Young Hawk moved to stand beside her, his presence a reassuring reminder of her first ally among the Lakota. Running Elk raised his hands for silence, and the murmurs of the gathered tribe quieted immediately. "My people," he began, his voice strong and clear, "we have endured a hard winter. We have faced enemies from without and doubts from within. Yet we stand here today, stronger for having weathered these storms together." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. "The time has come to look forward," Running Elk continued. "The spirits have shown me that our tribe must adapt to survive in a changing world. The white man's presence expands across our lands. We cannot stop this tide, but we can learn to navigate its waters." Some of the older tribal members shifted uncomfortably at these words, but none interrupted. "1 year ago," Running Elk said, his gaze finding Sarah among the crowd, "a stranger came among us. Not by her choice, but by the cruel hand of fate. My son saw in her something that I, in my grief and pride, could not see. A bridge between two worlds." Young Hawk straightened beside Sarah, his chest swelling with quiet pride. "Today, that stranger is no longer strange to us," Running Elk declared. "She has learned our ways, fought for our safety, and earned her place among the Lakota. In doing so, she has taught us that wisdom can come from unexpected sources." Running Elk gestured for Sarah to step forward. After a moment's hesitation, she moved into the circle, feeling the weight of every gaze upon her. "Sarah Mitchell came to us as a captive with no people," Running Elk said. "Today, I ask that she be formally accepted as Lakota, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails." Elder White Bear rose from his place in the circle, his ancient face inscrutable. "This is without precedent," he stated, though his tone held more curiosity than objection. "What name would she carry among us?" Running Elk looked to Sarah, giving her the opportunity to speak for herself. She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "Among my birth people I was Sarah," she said in clear Lakota. "But that woman died with her family on the plains. If the Lakota will have me, I would be known as Dawn Sky, for it was in the darkest night that I found the first light of a new day among you." A murmur of approval rippled through the assembly. Elder White Bear nodded slowly. "It is a good name, a true name." He turned to address the tribe. "Does any voice speak against accepting this woman as Lakota?" A tense silence followed. Sarah held her breath, acutely aware that despite all she had done, there might still be those who resisted her complete acceptance. When no objection came, Elder White Bear nodded again. "Then it shall be. From this day forward, Dawn Sky is Lakota in all ways but birth, and birth is but the beginning of a journey, not its definition." The tribe responded with calls of approval and welcome. Sarah, now Dawn Sky, felt tears prick at her eyes, overwhelmed by the journey that had brought her from captivity to belonging. As the formal ceremony concluded and the tribe began to disperse, Running Elk approached her. "There is one matter yet unresolved," he said, his voice pitched for her ears alone. "The council agreed that you would live with my sister for one turning of the seasons, and then we would reconsider your place among us." Dawn Sky nodded, suddenly uncertain. "Where will I live now?" Running Elk's expression softened. "That depends on your choice. Willow would welcome you as a permanent sister in her lodge, or—" He hesitated, an unusual display of uncertainty from the typically decisive chief. "Or you could join my lodge not as a guest or captive, but as my wife." The directness of the proposal took her breath away. "Your wife?" she repeated, searching his face for any sign of obligation or duty rather than genuine desire. "This is no political alliance," Running Elk assured her, seeming to read her thoughts. "The winter of my grief has passed. In you, I have found not just a mother for my son, but a woman whose strength and compassion match my own. If your heart does not lean toward mine, I will accept your decision with honor. But if there is any chance that you could see me as more than your chief—" Dawn Sky's mind raced. She could not deny the feelings that had grown between them, feelings she had scarcely allowed herself to acknowledge. Running Elk was unlike any man she had known, possessed of a quiet dignity and depth that had gradually drawn her to him despite their different worlds. "What of young Hawk?" she asked. "He chose me as a mother, not as a wife for his father." Running Elk's lips curved in a rare smile. "My son has grown wiser than his years. It was he who suggested I speak with you today. He says that the lodge has been half empty since Mourning Dove's passing, and that both you and I have carried hollow spaces that might fill each other." Dawn Sky felt a surge of affection for the boy who had become so dear to her. "He has his mother's insight," she said softly. "And his father's stubbornness," Running Elk added with a chuckle. "He will not rest until he sees us both happy." Dawn Sky took a deep breath, reaching out to take Running Elk's hand, a bold gesture that would have been unthinkable months ago. Then perhaps we should not disappoint him. The wedding ceremony took place as summer reached its fullness. The entire tribe gathered to witness the union of their chief with the woman who had journeyed from captive to Lakota. Young Hawk stood proudly beside them, his face shining with satisfaction at the outcome of the choice he had made a year before. As Dawn Sky and Running Elk completed the traditional exchange of gifts and promises, Elder White Bear raised his hands in blessing. "What began as two separate paths has become one," he proclaimed. "May this union remind us all that strength comes not from standing apart, but from weaving our lives together. The future of our people will depend on finding wisdom in new places while honoring the traditions that sustain us." That evening, as the celebration continued around them, Dawn Sky sat with her new family outside their lodge. The stars emerged one by one in the darkening sky, the same stars her mother had taught her to read, now watching over her new life. Young Hawk leaned against her side, comfortable in the way he had never been when she first arrived. "Are you happy?" he asked simply, looking up at her with eyes that seemed older than his years. Dawn Sky smiled, glancing at Running Elk who sat nearby, deep in conversation with some of the tribal elders. "I am," she affirmed, "though sometimes happiness comes wrapped in packages we don't expect." Young Hawk nodded sagely. "Like a mother who arrives with hair the color of summer wheat, or a son who sees beyond appearances to what truly matters," she returned, touching his cheek affectionately. Running Elk joined them, settling beside his wife and son. "What wisdom are you two sharing?" "We were discussing unexpected gifts," Dawn Sky replied, her hand finding his. Running Elk's gaze took in his son and his new wife, his expression one of profound contentment. "The most valuable treasures are often those we do not seek," he observed. "They find us when we have the courage to open our hearts to possibilities beyond our imagining." As night deepened around them and the celebration gradually quieted, the three sat together under the vast prairie sky. They were an unlikely family, brought together by tragedy and choice, by loss and renewal. Yet in their union they had found something precious, a bridge between worlds that offered hope not just for themselves, but perhaps for the future that awaited them all. Dawn Sky gazed at the stars, sending a silent message to those she had lost. They would always be part of her, just as her new family and people were now part of her. The circle was complete. She had found her way home,